I haven't looked into that yet because I've been so focused on getting all this schoolwork done.
Yeah,
And
good job.
now Eric is just putting putting the sound bath I did on, whatever it is that I don't really understand any of that computer stuff, but he's loading it up
Mhm.
so we can send it
Nice.
and then
Nice.
I'm done.
Yeah. Is
I'm
this
done.
have your head
Congratulations.
shaved?
No,
Oh,
no, it's just
oh. It was
no,
like shaved and then yeah. It's just the
I might have hair loss too. I don't know. Really fun getting old. All kinds of things start happening. So, David, you're going to get hearing aids?
Well, I was telling her I just had my annual physical and I do have a referral to go to an audiologist. So we'll
Okay.
see.
Yeah, maybe that's what I should do is get a physical and then I'll know who to go to.
Well, I don't know about your health insurance or doctor stuff or anything, but for our health insurance, you need a referral to go to an ENT or audiologist type of person. So I had to go see our regular doctor anyway. And since we had our physicals already scheduled, I just brought it up then.
Hmm.
Oh, I was gonna say they didn't test me for test my hearing when
Well,
I
you're still young. That's why.
well, they were also concerned about my blood pressure at 215. So
Oh,
yeah,
Ah,
so that was the only reason I went. I normally don't go
yeah.
to the doctor, but yeah, because I went
So
in
you
for I had yeah. I
did
told you
you
guys
tell
that
them
story.
you've been under a lot of stress?
Well, I think a big part of it too was the oral contraceptive that I was on, and that's the only reason I went into a doctor to begin with, because they were like, we need to do a check because it can raise your blood pressure. They're like, we haven't done that for a couple of years. So that was my gynecologist, and she's like, we should. And I went in, I wasn't feeling good that day, and I have felt like that before. So I think with perimenopause creating lots of imbalance, the oral contraceptive, stress, all of those things contributed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're like, oh, you need to go to the ER. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And I was,
ER?
oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's so high. That's super high. They get concerned even at 190,
Oh,
I was 215. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they were like,
Wow.
oh my gosh. So they finished my exam and then they walked me over to the ER and I was there for 4 hours.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, they had me rest. It came down to 170, which is still too high for them because 120 is that like normal where they want you, and there's
hmm.
Beth. So yeah,
Wow.
so they're
But
like,
So,
are you doing better now?
yeah. Well, I'm
so
on a pill now for that.
Oh,
So
you're off
it's
the
good.
pill.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they gave me so no more estrogen. They put me on progesterone instead. Because there was, I had pain and things so there was a reason I was taking that. So progesterone instead of estrogen, and then and a hypertensive,
Mm,
antihypertensive medication.
okay.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
hi, Beth.
Hi, you guys. Wow, Tracy
Here,
sounds
here.
intense. What?
I don't see you. Oh, there you are.
Um,
She is. Yeah. No, that was
hi.
this summer, didn't I? I thought I told you guys about it. But
About
they
what?
did. So my point was they didn't test my hearing.
Oh,
Oh, right.
That's not what they were concerned about.
right. There were more important considerations.
Yeah. They just wanted to make sure I was going to stay alive, not stroke
Right. Fair enough.
out. So from the ER, they referred me to a primary care physician, which I hadn't established since moving up here. But even
Mhm.
before then, I wasn't going regularly. So
Mhm.
Yeah, me either. I don't have a primary care physician right now
yeah.
because I moved.
I
Yeah.
had I had the same one for 28 years and before that for like 20 years. I loved them. And before that, my neighbor. So and just this past year, my, my, my primary care person retired and the person I got, I liked, but then she left the network. So yeah, I'm struggling to find a primary care person I want to see.
Hmm.
Hey, you guys check it out outside today.
It's blurry. We can't see it.
Do you see that?
No, not really.
Is it
Is it
snowing?
snow?
Oh, it's a huge snowstorm.
Oh, wow.
Yay.
It's blizzarding.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
And so are you having hot cocoa?
I'm having my Americano.
Okay.
You
I
got your
always-
project done, LD.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
is everybody done and submitted?
Well, I don't think Heather is,
Yeah, I
but
think she had a few things to do.
yeah,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah.
That's so what did you end up doing, LD? Your sound bath?
I did a sound bath, yeah.
Oh, great. Did you like the second one better?
No. No, that one didn't. And then we did a third one. Because, you know, Eric being an artist, he wanted to do all these special effects and he wanted to do it at night with candles inside the bowls, you know, and all this stuff. And I said, you know what, let's just do it with daylight, you know, because this lighting is fine, you know, the daylight lighting. Um, so that's what we did. And mostly it works. There's a couple of things. There's a place, an area where my voice goes off pitch, and then another place where, oh, when I'm playing the Koshi chimes, they get really quiet. Like he should have come closer to them with the microphone. But you know, it's not going to be perfect. I don't care anymore. I just want to get it out there.
Well, and that can be part of your write-up. That's what I did. I was like, oh, I learned a lot by doing this on Zoom. Like, you can hear the heater and, there were different things. So that was just part of my write-up and part of the
I
experience.
did that
I
too.
learned. Yeah,
I wrote, it's not perfect, but I did learn a lot. I said the
yeah,
same thing. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got mine all written. I'm going to rearrange some of the wording. I haven't turned it in. And then I have a couple of video clips and I'm going to attach like our logo, the script, because you can't hear all of my words, the scripts I drafted, and a promotional flyer and the outline of the thing. So I did it like with an essay talking about why I chose the voice as my project. And I talked about just like the significance of it. And then I'm just going to take little clips where I'm actually using the voice as and the seed mantras associated with the chakras. And I'm just going to share those clips. Yeah, they're not very good, but at least it's going to be done.
Yeah.
So
So what
Right.
did you learn? How was it?
what?
What did you learn? How was it for you?
Oh, well, I learned all kinds of things. I mean, because it's been a process over the last like 4 or 5 weeks. I've videotaped different things that I've done, and I haven't really liked any of them. I realized I need someone to actually videotape it for me. I learned, I've learned how to use my voice in a session, and in the past I've always hired someone, or like I asked Ash to join with me to use the voice. Before that I've always had a vocalist and I've begun to use my voice, and so that's really a big deal
Yeah.
that I'm using it. And we had I've just had a series of, like, I was like, what was going on with the planets the other day, right? I think Pluto went in because the person who was paying us, she was supposed to pay us $1,200, and she subtracted $100 from the thing, and then didn't decided at the last minute she didn't want me to do yoga, so she canceled us doing yoga. But then we got there, and the yoga person asked us to play music behind her yoga, and anyway, everything, it was just kind of a really interesting experience at this new place. And she ended up stiffing us $100 because she charged us for these ridiculous intention bouquets of like 4 straw flowers and little sage things. that she invited us to come do and said all the presenters were coming and they were going to be involved in all of the workshops throughout the day. And all the other presenters came to our sound bath and we didn't charge for them. And then she charged us for these little intention bundles. So we were kind of like, whoa, that wasn't in our contract. She just like subtracted the price of them. So that was interesting. And we're kind of processing how to deal with that. But mostly I learned how much I like working with Addie and how much different it sounds when Ash is with us and how we need to really rehearse more with Ash. Ash sort of sits in with us when I get bigger gigs that we get paid more at. But you can tell that she doesn't practice with us as much, you know, so it was a little, that was a little unsettling hearing how she would come in on instruments that didn't have the flow that Addie and I have together. But her voice is so beautiful and her energy is so beautiful that I love to have her. So I think what I've mostly learned is that I just really want to keep practicing to build the ensemble.
Well, I remember you saying using your voice as a real growth edge, so I wanted to kind of know more about that piece.
Oh God, yeah. Well, just, you know, when I first started, I mean, I even got a sore throat as I was typing up the essay, Tracy, because you know, it's so related to I think my fifth chakra issues and just feeling not really empowered as a woman or a girl in my life to speak my truth. I think I told you years ago I was assaulted when I was about 6 and I sat on my hands for all of second grade because I didn't have the words to describe what had happened, but I knew something bad had happened and I didn't want to say anything. So I get this this like catch in my voice. And I felt like with Christine Stevens, you know, with the Brothers Crown, I was super resistant, struggling. I didn't like it. Then, you know, finally with Christine Stevens and her drama, I felt I had a really good breakthrough with my voice, and I felt like I used it therapeutically. And I've been using it ever since in sessions. Like I can sing in front of a group of kids. I can lead a sing along, a campfire, as long as I have a guitar in my hand. I feel really strong, and then I can support, like my voice will feel supported as I press, you know, I breathe into the body of the guitar and I feel strong and comfortable with that. But like just singing, like leading the Soham was super challenging. So I started with Soham and talking about how that emulates the breath and represents the breath. And we work through the crown chakra all the way to the root chakra. And it was really hard for me to sing Soham in front of a group of like 30 people, just by myself with no instrument. So that's what I've been working on, and working on being more comfortable using my voice in one-to-one sessions with people. Paul and I did some stuff using Christine Stevens' drum, and I feel like when I have the drum, when I have a guitar, when I'm sitting with my cello, like the quality of my voice just improves dramatically when I'm playing the cello. So I'm learning how to work with it. And I went to a voice workshop on Friday or on Saturday. I spent all afternoon in a 5 elements workshop. And at the beginning I was annoyed. Why did I come? I have so much to do. I should be doing my project. Why am I here? And then and my throat was sore and and then as we went into the singing, I kept hearing all these really cool lines I could play on the piano to support the singing that we're struggling. Or I kept hearing like ways that there was a cello sitting in the room that belongs to my friend Cindy. I wanted to pick up the cello and join in. I had to use everything in my power not to go to an instrument, but to stay with my voice, right? But then by the mid part of the session, I was beginning to feel entrainment and moving in synchrony with people. And we'd done some vocal play games around sounds associated with different elements. And by the end of the day, I was just feeling absolute joy and freedom with my voice. So it's sort of like each time I sort of start over, but I'm like up one step higher, you know? So I'm getting there. And yeah, I mean, my throat will start to hurt. I'll start to get tired. I'll start to notice myself becoming antagonistic. And then I've had this cough. So I'm learning to just appreciate my authentic voice for whatever it is in the day that I'm in. And I don't know if I'll ever have, like, my mother was a professional singer and choir director. My grandma had a radio show and sang on the radio. My daughters have beautiful voices. I'm afraid I'll be like 80 and old by the time I actually find my voice, and then it will be an old lady croak. But I'm getting there. I'm just working it.
Yeah.
Is that the right answer, Trace?
Well, that
Does
helps me
that make
better
sense?
understand your experience around your, because you said your intention for the project was to really grow in that way, and yes, so that was really nice to hear about.
Yeah, so keep singing, because that's what really helped me. When I know you read my website, Beth, and I don't think that you guys know about this, but when I was 2 years old, my family immigrated from Hungary after the revolution had failed, and it was too scary to stay. And right as we got to the border between Hungary and Austria, um, it started sleeting, and there were a couple of tanks guarding the border, Russian tanks, and I woke up and started just screaming. And my dad put his hand over my mouth, right? And so I've had lots of trouble with my voice as well. But when I was really young, 4 years old, my mom taught me some Hungarian folk songs. So I found my voice. Because up until then, I wouldn't talk to people. I was just scared of everybody. And so I've I've done a lot of singing through my whole life since then. Because what happened was, so my mom taught me these folk songs, and then we had like a gathering. This is in New Jersey, a gathering of Hungarian people. We were around a campfire, and my mom put this little, like traditional drindle on me, and I got up in front of these people and sang these songs she taught me, and everybody loved it because cute little 4-year-old. So I got a lot of positive reinforcement, and that made a huge difference for me. And I realized that my voice had power. So, Beth, are you listening?
Totally listening. I'm right here.
All right, good, because I'm telling this for your benefit.
No,
So
I just
I
sat my
really
phone down.
encourage you to keep singing, just, during the day while you're whatever washing dishes, just sing.
I think you're right. And I was so, I referenced Sandra Ingerman and how she talked about using our authentic voice no matter what it was, and how important Chloe Goodchild's work was. And I said how much, just like you guys have said, I wish that we could be in Fred Johnson's integration sessions, because I felt they were so powerful. And I feel like his integration sessions would help me to continue this work. So yeah, yeah, I really appreciate your story, Ildi. I know how hard it was in Hungary. I told you I'm Hungarian too, and have been there a number of times. And yeah, our families went through a lot leaving there. My grandfather was imprisoned, and my great grandfather was imprisoned, and my great uncle was impaled. And my great
Oh,
grandfather stowed away on a boat and ended up in Mallorca, and then ended up in Virginia as an immigrant right after the Bolshevik Revolution in the around 1916, 15, maybe a little before that. Yeah. But yeah, Hungary was really intense. That was your story is so powerful, Ildi.
What a great opportunity as a young child to have that healing experience and change that around for you instead of taking it into adulthood completely. Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And when I was watching this video that we did, and I started talking, and I noticed my jaw is really clenched, and that's something I need to work on, maybe doing massage on it and remembering to open my mouth wider.
Actually, in choir, that's one of the stretches we do before we start singing is just, massaging your jaw like this. I mean, we do back stretches and shoulder and neck too, but One of them
Cool.
is the jaw. And the other thing that I tell, and this is in a choir situation, but generally you want to sing a little bit sometimes. It depends on the situation, but you kind of want to sing a little bit mush mouth to release that tension. And especially in warm-ups, you don't want to be, moving your jaw and your mouth a lot. You want to sort of keep it in kind of the one position as much as you can instead of the way we talk and, moving it lots and lots and lots to be super articulate.
What do you mean
That's
by mush mouth?
Mush mouth. So like if I was singing, I sigh to sing versus I sigh to sing. Like
I
one way I'm keeping my mouth sort of in the same position and it's not tense, and the other way I'm working really hard to over enunciate everything. So it's just called mush mouth.
I love that,
Mm.
David. When I work with my cello students to help soften their vibrato, I have them do,
Mhm.
and I have them put their tongue between their teeth when they're playing, because if their tongue is between their teeth, they can't clench,
Right?
and then their vibrato stays looser. Yeah. So I don't know, like, how much of my own personal story I want to contain in the little essay I wrote, because I don't want to be like super boring. But like when I was super little, I sang until I had this incident where I started to sit on my hands and everything got caught. But I also feel, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I feel like it's so weird how depending on the situation, my inhibitions are so different. Like
Mhm.
if I'm leading a group in front of children or have a guitar, I'm just fine.
Yeah.
In the Soham stuff that I did, I'm glad you talked about that, David and Ildi, because I did the Soham with arm movements, but then it came down to the third eye and Anya and asked people to do the sacred Om and explore with a Om Nenji Sana, opening the throat, and then vibrating on the M with the third eye with Anya, and then move them down to the fifth chakra and had them going from massaging the occipital ridge in the back to coming up from behind Omnion, behind the ear and down the jawline, and then tapping on the clavicle to just release stress and stagnation and grief around the lung acupuncture points. So I put movements with each of the Bij mantras, and that also helped. And I noticed in the workshop I was at that when we moved with sound, I felt so much better and so much more comfortable than when I don't move with sound.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the entrainment that occurred when people started to move with their singing was really beautiful. And in the paper, I wrote like one of the side effects of the vocal workshop that I attended on Saturday was how much entrainment and how much there was an increase in positive affect of everybody in the group by the end of the session, by the end of the afternoon, because of the happy hormones we released and the social cohesion that developed in just making music together.
Yeah, I remember seeing somewhere somebody said, maybe it was one of our instructors, singing together with others is beneficial that way.
Oh, yeah. There were a couple of instructors who talked about that. Definitely Yuval Ron did.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and who
Josh
else?
Leeds too.
Gosh, yeah.
Well, who was
Okay,
the guy originally at the beginning of the sessions, the researcher who did the work with drumming, and then he learned, and then he did the work with
Is it
Black
B
churches?
something? B,
Yeah, it was
Oh, Bettman maybe?
Yeah.
Beckman. Yeah,
Bittman,
Bittman?
Dr.
Bit,
Bittman.
Dr. Bittman, yeah, he talked about how his research showed the entrainment that occurred in that. But I'm like, dude, this stuff has been documented in music therapy literature since the 70s, 60s, So we know that it builds cohesion. We've known that through, and then Joshua Leeds was so surprised by it, right? Talking about community music. But I think this
Well,
is something, David, every
just keep
music
in
teacher
mind
knows.
that everybody doesn't know that stuff. You do, but that doesn't mean everyone in the class knew it.
Well, I think like every music teacher and every choral director, I mean, we see this. So I just don't know why they were acting like they were presenting new research. That's all I'm saying. No, and yeah, I guess maybe not everybody does know that, but I felt like they were Bittman and like Yuval Ron was super powerful, but I felt like they were presenting this information like it was new, you
Mhm.
know, and it's not new.
It's
So that
always good to have a reminder too. Like I'd heard it before for sure, but when I heard it now, it was like, oh wow, yeah, I should be doing that. You know, it's like a reminder, like, because I tend to not want to join groups, and like now the local community chorus is doing the Messiah, which I've done so many times, and I feel like why don't I go join them? You know, I've done solos, both soprano and alto, and I don't know. I don't know. It's just like I'd have to drive over there, you know, and I should just make the effort.
As a quick aside, Ildi, your
Yes,
local choir was just in an NPR story.
I know.
what?
I
Pretty
saw
cool.
that.
Tell about
Yeah.
Um,
what
it
happened.
was it was an NPR story about how basically a choir in a very diverse political atmosphere stays together.
Wow. And
It was
what did they
it's just interesting. I don't think that it was a formula for how, people with diverse political opinions can come together, but it was a very nice example of, people, even though they have their opinions, staying open to other opinions. And, they don't, the choir isn't sort of, well, once you walk in here, we don't discuss politics at all. It is once you walk in here, this is a safe space for everybody's opinion, kind of. Um, but it was an interesting article, but I thought of you since it was that part of the state. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that's where I moved from when I came to where I am right now. I was
Yeah.
in Paonia. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot, well, this whole area is getting publicity. Like where I am now, halfway up Grand Mesa, there was an article in National Geographic about how it's the largest flat top mountain in the world.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I have a feeling this part of Colorado, Western Colorado, is going to be inundated with people very soon.
Right.
my nephew just bought land north of Telluride, about 20 miles north of Telluride. And yeah, he's excited about that. Ildi, I think everybody would love to have you in the choir, but it is effort to drive and be there. That's true, but you have so much to offer, and it might help you grow your connections and build your sound work if you're wanting to do that. If you want to build it. And I don't mean to be negative. I'm really glad when you call me and hold me accountable, Ildi, because I do get, I'm just I'm judgmental of myself. And I'm also just, there's a fine line between being discerning and being pissy.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's
that
not,
reminds me, I had a mentor once who said, I mean, I think this is just nature. We tend toward more negative until we intervene to make it different. I mean, with a human brain, we have the ability to intervene and do something different. Otherwise, our genes are going to take over and go into survival mode, which is where's all the negative stuff that can hurt me, and that our DNA hasn't changed that much over
yeah, the
time.
biggest part is that you were saying that our DNA hasn't changed that much, is that I think our biggest fear is that we're going to be rejected by the tribe and be
Right.
thrown out, and then we won't survive.
And then when we have personal experiences, around that in our histories. You know, it's just something that we have to manage and work with over time. Yeah.
Well, and I think when we're singing together in a group, there's a lot of heart opening that goes on. You know, just like when we're playing cello together, at an unconscious level, when you begin to create music and breathe together, you begin to have more compassion for each other. So that's the process. That's, it's the work. It's based on Chomsky's literature around eye movement and synchronicity in eye movement. And unconscious facial expressions between mothers and infants, that when we breathe together, we come together. So that, I
There's
mean,
also
there.
something around, it seems like I've heard something around also whenever people work together toward a common project, whatever it is, whether it's music or something else, when we're collaborating and cooperating, that's going to build cohesion as well, connection.
And yeah, and I think that, Tracy, I honestly think not only is it, I think it's because when we're working on a common project in physical proximity, we begin to move together.
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
literally
I
move.
experienced that in all of my Reiki events too. You know, we all start out not knowing each other, everybody's nervous and whatever, but by the end, everybody's feeling great because lots of different things have happened. We've gotten to know each other a little bit, we've experienced energy together, we've shared, you know, because I'm facilitating sharing, you know, so we have this common experience that we move through, and by the end, you know, it feels like a family.
Mhm.
Especially if it's like my trainings where a cohort is together for, you know, a period of months or whatever.
I even think when we end with sound or have music in this group, that we all feel a little bit more, just, I know that I have warmer, fuzzier feelings.
Yeah.
I guess
Mhm.
that's the word, warm fuzzies.
So I'll share with you, I'm going to do something like that with this dialysis center next week. So we had a death this week. We have somebody else who may be going on hospice. He's in the hospital all of a sudden with some major stuff going on. We've got the staff is all, especially one person is all kind of up in arms around the election. And so I suggested, and I wasn't even thinking about you know, people's reactions to the election, but I was thinking about this death, and now we've got somebody else who's been with the clinic long term who might not be coming back. And so I said, do we need to do a debrief? Like, do we need some kind of, she's like, I said, can we do a stress lunch? Should we do, you know, should I come in? I wasn't planning to go in next week, but I offered to go in on Monday for a couple of hours to, you know, support the staff. And they were like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, I'll bring a bowl and we can do, you know, I can guide you through a little bit of something there too. And I said, I want to try, and they're like, and the patients too. I'm like, okay, I want to try the bowl on you guys first. So you get a sense of what that's like, see, you know, what their thoughts are about it, and just to support them. But then, you know, I'll spend a little time with the patients. I don't know if I'll use my bowl with the patients this week, but if I need to do any kind of check-ins for them as well, because they kind of get to know each other, especially ones that have all been there together. They see people coming and going, and then to suddenly see somebody not coming back, or to hear that somebody has died, you know, all of a sudden their mortality is, I mean, it's always in the back of their minds, I think, but, you know, if they're maintaining and doing okay, I imagine that, you know, it's not in the forefront until all of a sudden it is. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that could happen to me. And so, yeah, so Monday I'm gonna go. But have you guys heard about anybody like, can you sanitize a bowl for a patient to hold? I don't know. Gloves might
I,
work.
I think, I think you could probably spray diluted bleach right on it.
Well, is it gonna ruin, like, I don't want to change the look of my, I'm not gonna take my crystal bowls, but the metal bowls, I don't want
Oh,
to.
all the metal bowls.
Yeah, I mean, we have sanitizing wipes for all of our equipment. We have medical grade stuff, but I don't know that that's really gonna, unless I buy a bowl specifically for that, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. I don't know.
I think you
I
can
think it'll work
use,
just fine for a metal bowl.
yeah, I mean, I think you can use sanitary wipes just fine. You might also bring just a hand towel and then dry it off immediately instead of just wiping it and letting it air dry. just
That's
to
what kills
wipe the
them.
chemicals off, but I think you can still use the wipe to sanitize it, and then have somebody hold it and then wipe it and dry it, and it should be fine.
I
You
mean, I
know,
don't
you,
foresee
you
doing
could,
this next
you
week,
could,
but
you could also use Den of Thieves, an essential oil versus a chemical. Den of Thieves cleaner, and you get a cap full of it and just dilute it in a spray bottle. That takes mold off of our boat better than almost anything.
wow.
And it's non-abrasive and it's non-toxic and it
Yeah,
sanitizes.
yeah, in a medical setting, I don't think they'll go for that, but I think, I mean, if people, I'm not going to do this next week, but that's what I'm starting to think about is, can we offer them gloves if they want to use the bowl themselves? Because the wooden handle is going to be hard to, and with the felt isn't going to be sanitary. So
Well,
they can use
Tracy,
gloves.
when we do music therapy in hospital settings, I mean, I've worked extensively pre-COVID, but I have never ever seen anyone like maracas get passed out and people might just wipe them off afterwards and in school settings, but instruments are maracas, mallets are traditionally shared among people with very little regard to sanitation. It's like kazoos and whistles and recorders that I used to sanitize, and we would spray a diluted bleach on those because they were plastic. But the other instruments, just a little cloth at the most was all I've ever seen anyone use. And I worked in hospitals and mental health centers and schools for decades, and I never heard anyone expressing concern about germs being transmitted by
And
sharing instruments.
pre-COVID and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll see what as we explore this because I know the organization has protocols that they will want me to follow. This is an
What
immunocompromised.
what do they do with like exercise equipment and the physical and occupational therapy equipment? How do they
It gets
clean that?
wiped down with the medical grade wipes.
So probably that.
Yeah. But they're also not like porous wooden. I don't know, but I'll see. I'll keep exploring and I'll look into things. So thanks for those ideas. Um, yeah, I think it'll be fun and see what the staff's reaction is on Monday, and then slowly integrate it into. I think it could easily be done with just um, gloves. But I just keep thinking about Christine talking about, the one Remo ocean drum being designed to be sanitized for
Mm.
hospital settings and things. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think it'll be fun to sort of slowly introduce maybe to patients. I don't know if I'll ever get to a place where I'm doing something for the whole group at one time. Because, I mean, they'll hear it because it's a small space, but if one person's using it, or if I'm using it for one person, other people will hear it. But they're usually just sleeping, and they don't feel great during their treatments. Sometimes they're
My,
cramping and different
my
things.
dad was in dialysis and it was incredibly traumatic for him and he resisted for a long time. And when he finally started dialysis, they went to put the needle in and they did it wrong and he was started to bleed all over and it was very, very traumatic. And then he went back and again that happened where they couldn't find a good vein and he began to bleed and bleed and bleed. And he eventually was able to successfully do dialysis, but his stress overdoing it um was so profound. He wasn't sure if he wanted to, like, I think I'm just sharing this because I think his experience is important. He wasn't sure if he wanted to end his life by being um dependent on dialysis. So just that cognitive dissonance around, should I just not do dialysis and let myself pass away? Should I do dialysis and be committed to traveling to this place and being on a machine? And then having really terrible experiences with it.
Yeah.
The stress level for my dad, he was a very brave man. He was a Navy aircraft carrier pilot, and did extreme skiing and all kinds of crazy adventures.
So
Parachute,
what did he do?
terrified by dialysis.
Oh, yeah.
Did he decide to do it or not?
He did his dialysis 2, 3 times, and every time that he went in, they punctured him, and there was like blood all over the floor, all over his
Oh.
clothes. And after the third time of that happening, he just said, this is too traumatic. And he had some spots in his lungs that were maybe growing, and he was at the end stage of renal failure. And he said, I can't go back to that. I can't go back into that setting because it was just traumatic for him. But as traumatic as of the experience was the decision to actually begin dialysis for him was a huge psychosocial stressor around whether or not he wanted to be dependent on that, because becomes a form of life support.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
And it's
They end up in the
always
hospital with them.
temporary, right? I mean, it works for a while and then
Well,
all
it
it
depends on
does
the
is
person's
prolong their
situation.
life.
Like we have some people who are moving through the transplant process, and some people get transplanted.
Oh.
So it's temporary that way. For some people, we have some people who have too many comorbidities, and they don't qualify for transplant. And so this is their life, and they will live on dialysis until they are no longer living. Yeah.
And that was my dad's situation.
And they've told me that for most people, the prognosis is 2 to 5 years, something like that, if depending on their situation. So yeah, so their life, it's like a part-time job. Their life revolves around it, and it's not just the time on dialysis. I mean, the people are telling me that most of the time they feel pretty fatigued afterward. They don't have a lot of energy. And some people feel okay the next day, but they're coming in like 3 times a week. So they might have, a good day, and then dialysis day is not so great. So they have a few days a week that they're okay. But some people aren't, because most of them have diabetes. So their diet has to support the diabetes and the kidneys, that are failing. And so they have to be really careful about fluids and protein and sugar, and so there's
Salt.
a lot of stuff that way as well. And so it's not like they aren't healthy people generally.
On another note, one of my best friend's husbands, when we were in college, we met, and he had diabetes. He had a he was on dialysis and had a kidney transplant when he was around 28. And he's lived now another 34 years, maybe. And he just recently had to start on dialysis again. And when I say recently, I say about 4 years ago, he went back on dialysis, and he's been weak, but he's in his 70s, and he has been on dialysis now. This is the second time in his life. And he's had the kidney transplant, but sometimes people will live for years.
And some people
with
can do
this
dialysis at home
at home.
during
Yeah.
the night while they're sleeping, and that's a little bit different experience. But it's still like they have to have all the supplies, they have to hook it up. Traveling has its challenges. So yeah.
It sounds like this will be such a really incredibly important place for you to develop a program, Tracy, and such a great opportunity to really, support folks with chronic fatigue, pain, anxiety, transitioning. What a wonderful job for you.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, because I think the clinic is fine with me doing it, like the clinic supervisor, but if it starts like becoming known, depending on how it evolves, like leadership may have a different opinion about it. So, but it could be, you know, if there, it could be an opportunity for some research too. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. Like she said, it's a very exciting opportunity to see what can come of it.
Yeah, I
I
just,
think too, this is just when I worked in a palliative care center at a hospital, and what people really, really liked, they loved the harp, they loved the cello, they loved when I played pieces of music that might be like a hymn, but then I would take it away from the melody that they recognized and drift into something else. They loved music,
yeah,
you know, and if there's some way that you can combine music with sound, you know, and that's where I may be using your voice with your bowls or asking them to use their voice.
mhm,
I th- I think people might be slightly more receptive to that than just plain sound.
mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
see.
I've had people tell me that the bowls can be too loud, the bowls can be too jarring. And in the sound bath we just did, Ash doesn't play with us as regularly, and she played the bowls, and there were times when they just jarred, you know. So I don't know. Me, I just think building from a very soft, gentle
Mhm.
um sound into sounds that meld with the person that's receiving it and maybe their own expression.
Yeah, I feel cautious about starting. Like I want to just sort of like one person at a time. Hey, do you want to try this out? You know, and be kind of gentle. I'm gentle anyway in general, but knowing that, you know, it's a small space. There are only 8 chairs and, you know, but one at a time, like get a sense of how people respond to it, what they think of it, so that if there is something that is a little bigger, you know, this person's going to hear it, you know, is that okay? Even if it's not directed toward them or for them, you know, how are they, you know, and just kind of go from there. But yeah, I like the idea of, I just think about starting with a metal bowl, simple, soft, just to be, and cleaner, and then maybe eventually kind of bring in, introduce some other instruments, and then who knows? I mean, maybe there, when on days that I have time, I could do a whole sound bath for the whole group. I don't know, but we'll see.
I have like a 3.5 foot rain stick, and I've used that with people, like where I flip it and then like place it on a part of their body where there's stagnation and it's so subtle. I put it on my contractor's head. One day I said, because he was so stressed, and I said, let's just see if we can help cleanse what's going on. And he sat down, this big huge man who's like 6'3" and 230 pounds. He sat down on the floor, and I tipped the rain stick up and it placed it on his crown chakra. And he said he felt like everything, all the anxiety in him just broke away and drifted away.
Wow.
And it was just
Wow.
that rain stick.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
other
But
thing you
that's
might,
such a gentle instrument to use.
yeah.
yeah, the other thing you might consider as you're thinking about instruments and whatnot, Native American flute. I play that with some of my hospice clients sometimes, and they really enjoy that.
Yeah.
And you had a flute and then a bowl that matches one of the pitches,
Mm,
like a metal bowl. That might
Yeah.
be, because that starts to, like Beth is saying, that starts to blend the sound and the music together.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
and
another idea to think about.
oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think as if, you know, if the whole room is like comfortable with stuff and they're like, oh yeah, I love the flute. Everybody's like, yeah, I love the flute. And I'm like, okay, I'll just come in and play. I'll walk around maybe. And yeah,
I don't know,
I'm a ways
but
away from that though.
Tracy, I would talk to a music therapist if you have one, and maybe consult with someone who could provide support to you in this, because music therapists are trained to work in these settings and with this kind of situation. And having like a mentor or a consultant in your community that you can like, talk with, I think having really specific intentionality, I think just walking around with sound is using it. I feel like it needs to be used with intentionality, with a specific therapeutic goal, not very mindfully what is my therapeutic and treatment intention with this sound, and what is the outcome that the clients have asked for, that I'm working on. Is it anxiety?
That's how I work with anything. So that's what I would do. It wouldn't just be a free for all like band, entertainment concert experience, but there's always a reason for it. I would go and do some research first, online. What can I find about using sound with dialysis patients? And, that's how I approach things. But yeah, so I think I'm a long ways away from anything more than just what do you think about this? And like I said, starting with the staff on Monday with just some breath, it's meant for stress reduction. Maybe I'll take a couple of different instruments, like my chimes and a bowl, but a bowl or two, and then see what their reactions are, and
great.
then
That sounds like a
gently
great
introduce it to one patient at a time, and yeah, and then start exploring where
And
to
then
go
your
next.
patients will die. Your patients that you introduce it to will die, and then you'll have other patients, right? Or they'll leave it.
Exactly, yeah, and it'll have to be kind of
So
a,
it's-
but I also want to be mindful of, the organizational, the organization, and because the clinic where it's rural, it's small town, people are like, yeah, that sounds great. But I know from working in the organization in different ways and at different levels, I know that eventually leadership needs to be involved and be on board to support it. Otherwise, we're going to grow into something that's really amazing, and then all of a sudden they're going to shut it down if we don't have them on board initially, I think so.
Well, when in the hospital that I worked in for years, we developed the Eden experience, and we built this beautiful, beautiful healing garden with chimes and wooden chimes and metal chimes, and access to these like xylophone type instruments that you could play. It was before the band Soundgarden even existed. And we created a sound garden, and the whole entire facility was designed by this brilliant woman named Judy Wagner Groff, based on the book The Eden Experience, as an end of life sort of like transitionary facility. And it was absolutely literally heaven to work there. I had a team of dance movement therapists and art therapists, and I had music therapy interns that I supervised. We had a budget of like $300,000 a year to do music and creative arts therapy. And then the hospital was sold to a different group. It went from being a private Methodist hospital to being purchased by a group that called it Capitol Lakes. And Judy was fired. All of the art therapists were fired and told they could become CNAs or rec therapy assistants. And I was told that I could resign from my job and reapply for like a quarter of the salary. And they asked me to do a recipe book of the music therapy activities I did so the CNAs could replicate it, and to put them on little cards. And the head of nutrition became the director of rehab services, and the whole entire program, which we had for like 8 years, just was gone. And one of my colleagues, who was a occupational therapist who'd worked there for 34 years, took off for 3 days because her mother was dying. And she called in to say, I'm on my way back. The roads are really bad. And they fired her.
Wow.
I mean, it was just terrible. So yeah, it's like, what is management and who is management? It went from being a dream, an Eden experience, to
Yeah.
being CDs and a broken CD player with one speaker working. And I had 4 music therapy interns. I had dance and movement therapists who were brilliant. It was a wonderful experience that just 1 month it was there, and the next month it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I need to go. I've got my Druid class. I think we have a couple more sessions, so a couple more weeks. So I need to go. If you guys want to stay on, I can make somebody
I
else.
have to go too. I have a session to go do, so.
Oh,
I
fun.
can
Great.
take
Oh,
off
good,
now.
good luck. Good. And are you working at hospice now all the time?
No, this is volunteer. I volunteer with a hospice, so I have 3 clients that I see.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Good for you,
Nice.
David.
That's great.
Do you always see the same 3 or do they transition?
It's the same 3 unless, of course, someone passes and then I'll get a new one.
Hmm.
Great. I
So
bet
we're
they-
not meeting next week, right? Or are you guys wanting to meet? I think I'm going to be in Boise with my parents, so.
Yeah,
Right,
I'll be
because
in
it's on.
California.
Yeah, I have a house full of people, so probably.
So we'll skip next week.
No.
So we'll skip next week and come back to it in 2 weeks.
Well, you guys have a
All right.
beautiful, beautiful
You
holiday.
too.
Thank you all.
Happy
you.
Nice to
Thanksgiving,
see you all.
everyone.
See ya.
Lovely to talk to you all.
You
Yeah.
too.
You.
Love to
Bye.
you all.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Heather. Bye, Heather.
Thank you.
Okay. See ya.